start reading. Thank you, and we'll start with the first of our panelists, Tony.
Thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it. Tony Trahan. I'm the Deputy Director for the Office of Consumer Affairs here at the Office of Mental Health. I am a peer myself, and I have staff that are here in central office in Albany, and I have people in each one of our field offices. We have 5 different regions, and I have a total of 11 people that I supervise currently. And prior to working here, I worked at a housing program for people with mental health issues, and had a peer program there, and I was the supervisor there. And they, unfortunately, there they didn't know as much about peer stuff as they do here, so there I didn't make as many friends as I have here. And then prior to that, I worked at a homeless shelter where I was also a supervisor towards the end of my tenure there. So that's about it for him. I'm certainly very much appreciate the challenges of being a supervisor. There's a lot of really good things about it. It's not necessarily always easy, but it's very rewarding. So I'm glad that I'm here and able to hopefully share my experiences with folks. So thank you.
Thank you. And the next of our panelists is Gita.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me back. I was with us, I couldn't a month ago, talking about supervision. So I am the Associate Director for Consumer Affairs at NYC Health and Hospitals, the city's public health system. And we have about 60 years, actually it's just jumped to about 75 peers throughout the healthcare system. I directly supervise about 20 of those peers that out of our headquarters and are deployed to different facilities to do different types of peer support work. Before coming to New York, I was in Arizona for 20 years. My most recent experience was with Visions of Hope Arizona, a peer run that also was fully peer run. 100% of its employees from the CEO on down were peers, and I supervised some training programs and some peer support workers there. And before that, I helped start NASCARE, which was Northern Arizona Consumers Advancing Empowerment and Recovery and Empowerment. And that was a network of peer-run recovery centers. And I was the regional program director and had 4 of the center managers reporting to me. So I've been supervising peers for about, since 2003. And I don't know if I'll ever want to do anything else. So thanks for having me again. I guess next up is Scott McDonald.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Scott McDonald, currently the lead peer specialist for our Recipient Affairs Department here at Bronx Psychiatric Center. We have a team of 4 peers, myself included, and I also have the responsibility of overseeing our peer team and working with them. And there are, in the challenges, there are some great opportunities and some great teaching with our team, and it has been a very good experience. I've worked in the field for about 10 years now. I am a consumer of mental health services. I've also had a long experience of leadership in the corporate world, and all has led me to be what I'm in today, and like there's no place else I would rather be. So this is a great opportunity to get together and discuss peer vision and leadership, and I think the other panelists here are some great resources that we could all tap into. That I will introduce our last for the day, Ms. Celia Browne.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Rita, putting this on, also and Tony. My name is Sylvia Browne. I'm the Regional Advocacy Specialist at the New York City Field Office of Consumer Affairs. And I became a supervisor, a peer supervisor, through a grant called Peers as Members of Intensive Case Management Teams. It was a research grant, actually out of Bronx Psychiatric Center. I was first a peer specialist, and then I got promoted to a peer supervisor. And it was sort of like, practicing trial and error, working with my peers. Over time, there was more information developed about peer supervision. So helped to get first peer special civil service title that we have at the Office of Mental Health. And I used to do statewide work. I used to be director of peer special services, and I used to meet with all of the peers around the state for support. And I love doing that. I don't do that now, but kind of advise peers informally when they need me. So I'm really excited to be here.
Celia, and thank you, all four of you, for coming in and agreeing to just talk a little bit about what it is to be a supervisor. I will just introduce myself again very briefly. I'm Rita Cronis. I am on the instructional design team for Academy of Peer Services. And a project of the Academy of Peer Services is the virtual, what we're now calling the virtual learning community. We've just renamed ourselves, and we're rebranding ourselves as a learning community because it's much more aligned with the vision of the Academy itself. And supervision is something that we absolutely feel is an important part of that community, and we want supervisors to feel welcome in our community and to have resources as a part of this community. So that's why we're putting on this whole series that we're hoping will be a monthly, we're on it being a monthly session with different supervisors from different walks of life. And I'm going to go ahead and, before I ask the question, I'm just going to mention for those of you on the line that we will come back around and allow an open question and answer period after each of the four supervisors have answered this next question. The question is, not that. Hang on a second. The question is, what is the role of the supervisor? But anyway, the role of the supervisor, Tony?
Well, I do want to just give a quick disclaimer, though. So if I'm speaking about any particular circumstances or anecdotes, just want to know I'm not referring to any of the staff that I'm currently working with. I don't want people to interpret things in one way. So anything that I'm talking about is going to be reference to either previous jobs or aggregate or anecdotal things that I've collected over the years working with people out in the field. So I think the most important things as a peer supervisor and supervising peers is that how you acclimate the other staff, the non-peer staff, to working with peers. There's a lot of confusion, especially in the beginning, that non-peer staff have around folks, and they sometimes have difficulty adjusting to the fact that they're not working with patients or working with clients. Those are your coworkers, and they are coworkers with lived experience, and they are people who are bringing a new perspective. They actually be sometimes in conflict with some of the traditional approaches that we may have. If we've got people that are stuck in our system of care and we're doing certain interventions or offering certain things for folks and it's not working, generally the solution to that is do more of it. So doing more of what's not working is not really helpful, and we don't tend to get very far with that. So having peer staff is really important to help focus when we're kind of stuck, and to give that different perspective on things. And that can be threatening sometimes, depending on the people that you're talking to. So I think the peer supervisor needs to understand that peers are what Pat would call disruptive innovators. If the people that don't believe that recovery is possible, or recovery is only possible to this level and not like this level, then you're gonna run into some conflict. So, being able to protect the staff and understand that the staff are there, in some ways just by their very presence, they're upsetting the apple cart. But if we're trying to change the system, then we are definitely upsetting the apple cart, and it's going to get us into conflict with other more traditional folks. We need to make it a safe place for people to push the envelope, to push the system where it doesn't really feel comfortable going, so we can make this a much more effective, and I hate to use sort of jargon, but like a recovery-oriented system that really does help people not stay in the system but get out and get a life, and that our presence helps to role model that, but it's not always welcome. So I think that as a supervisor, we need to challenge the staff to be professional and to stand up for themselves and be assertive, and then the non-peer staff to help them understand that we're approaching this from a different angle, and to try and protect the staff when the non-peer staff are threatened by us.
Fantastic, Tony. Thank you. Gita, so question. In your view, what is the role of the supervisor? And unmute.
It's on mute. I try to stay on mute when someone else is talking. Oh, so I want to speak to the points Tony raised, but not until if we have time to get to the next the follow-up question about the organizational role, because what I see as the most important function of the supervisor here at Health and Hospitals is to mentor the peer employee. And it's interesting to me because I'm a certified peer specialist. I have certified peer specialists with master's degrees in social work. I have certified peer specialists with GEs. And everybody comes in and personal and professional development. I think the single most important thing I do is make us comfortable in their jobs by making sure that other staff know they're there and are comfortable working with them. We do a lot. I do in-service training with social work staff and other medical staff, but it's really primary to find out what the peers want. We have a lot of peers who start part-time, so the first thing that I like to do is mentor them into full-time jobs, preferably in one of our facilities. But if not, we've had many peers go over to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene for full-time opportunities. I like to make sure that there's a lot of training available. We try to send peers to conferences where possible. I don't know if people follow the news, but Health and Hospitals are not in the best financial shape to be sending us to conferences right now, but there's plenty of other training available. And so I feel that it's that important relationship I have is the mentorship. And again, with staff who have never worked in I want to call it 9-to-5 jobs, or have never worked within a system, it's important to mentor them on some of the very basic soft skills. Don't wear your hat in a meeting. You need to come on time every day. And sick every Monday. People who have no experience in the world of work cannot be expected to instantaneously be able to follow a complicated corporate scenario. And then people who are already have had some experience in the workplace, mentoring them, whereas maybe them to get some secondary education. What can we find that's available to help pay for that? Are there scholarships? Are there fellowships? Are there government loans? And some people who are ready, I have two certified peer specialists and recovery peer advocates, and we're moving them into subsidiary supervisory roles, which is great for me because it takes some of the pressure of supervising 25 people off me personally, and it's great for their professional development. They like supervising, and there have been a bump in salary. So I virtually never lose anyone, and I feel there's some mutuality there. Everyone, we work together, and there's I can't think of it. There's all both rise in the tide, but I feel like we're all growing and moving together, and I think that's the most important thing I can do as a supervisor. That's what it is. Wait a minute, it's a rising tide lifts all boats. So we're all in the boat. Thank you.
And with rising tide, I will go ahead and ask the very same question to Scott McDonald. Scott, what is, in your view, the role of the supervisor?
Well, I look at it from a couple different angles, and the most important aspects of being a supervisor is to stand the scope of the role and the responsibility of a supervisor, and what's to be done. And having had experience, in another life, it's a different mindset in the world I worked in previously. The thing about being a supervisor here is I have to sit down and talk with my team and have a conversation with them. And I was just thinking about, as Gita was talking, was the many things that you can do, not just as a supervisor, human beings, just be yourself, be who you are, and learn as much as possible in this role of supervisor. I have so many notes in front of me that I go 3 hours, but a couple I wrote down. You have to be able to handle multiple responsibilities at the same time. And that's not easy. And with the way the human service is going right now with just in healthcare, so many's happening in Albany and in Washington. Even some of my peer specialists wonder, what's going to happen down the road. And so I try to lead by example. And we have conversations all the time. And one of the things to do is communicate with them. I like to touch base with them on a regular basis. That's not easy, obviously, with all our schedules. They see what I go through as a quote leader. And the great thing is let them know what's going on. We communicate. We talk with each other. That's probably, in this particular situation here, probably one of the most important roles that I can play is that of communicator, and letting know what's going on and finding out how they're doing and letting them know that I'm here for them. That I have most responsibilities as far as human resources and training. When I do their reviews, a conversation, and to make that in spirit of leadership and cooperation and one. I'm the supervisor, you're the peer. We're the same team. And one thing I'll mention briefly is having played sports for a number of years. We're managing or supervising a team. You have X number of individuals, and you know how each individual takes to know, what they respond to certain situations. You know what's going on, with their life. Sometimes they're having a crisis. each one is different. And last I checked, we're clones and we're not robots, so feelings and emotions. And I think the role is a multifaceted role, and at the end of the day, it shows not just my peer team, but it also shows the professional team here on campus that can be leaders, that we can fulfill these responsibilities. And as we do so, we strengthen ourselves as a team, and we're able to work with our peers, whether inpatient or out in the community. So there's a lot to it. The great thing is that we're always learning, we're always evolving, and to recruit for tomorrow leaders. And so this is a great opportunity. This is a great time for us to be together to build our supervisor workforce, if you will, going forward.
Scott, thank you. I really appreciate that, and I really resonate with the idea of building up the leaders of tomorrow. All looking for the next to come into super. Celia, what is the role of the supervisor in your view?
I first want to support the role of the peers or peer specialists. They have different titles. And I think what happens is Gita was saying to be a mentor, I think is important. But I also think that, it's reciprocal. So peer support is reciprocal to me in a supervisory relationship as well. I think that works better if the peer is supervisor rather than a non-peer. I think that works better. I think that peers need to know that they have support, they can be who they are in recovery, and they can use their experiences to help their fellow peers as well. And I guess my advice to supervisors would be to kind of listen to the peer, not be so have them be clinical and they have to be a part of the system, which that does happen, but really explore who the peer is and what their expertise is and what do they give to the supervisor and to the system themselves. Because sometimes I think that is sort of like pushed away. The peer doesn't understand what their role would be. If you're just going to be a part of the system, like Tony was saying, and not being then that kind of defeats the purpose. It's not really good for the peer because then they can't figure out what their role is, and then the supervisor doesn't know what their role is. So I think it's okay to, of the complexities it is in the relationship between a supervisor and a peer, it's okay that you will work together on that, rather than trying to have every peer be like a clinician, unless that's something that they want to do. But why are you hiring a peer? Ask what the role is. Have clear definitions of what a peer is supposed to do on the job. I think that makes it easier for the supervisor and as well as the peer. I'll say, Rita.
Great. Thank you, Celia. Appreciate that. To Joe, because I can't see at this point if there have been any comments that have come in on the chat line or on the online chat. Are there any questions that have come in there before we go forward?
Yeah, if folks have questions that you want to ask as we're going along before we open the lines, if you'll use the chat function and send them to me, I'll relay them forward.
I just had one other question, and I wanted to go very fast, kind of a lightning round, if that's at all possible with this particular group. Within your particular organization, for instance, well, you're not speaking from the Office of Consumer Affairs right now, technically, Tony, but in your past life, where did the role of the supervisor fit within that past life in the organization where you worked before? I asked that same question of everybody else. Are you on mute?
Muted.
That's too bad. I was really making some good points. So it's an interesting question because when I was after I disclosed at the one that I was working, decided that they didn't want me doing events anymore, and that I should probably work just with peers now. So a little discriminatory how I ended up in the organization, working as the person there. So as far as my role, I don't think that my role was what I wanted me to be, because I really changed the way that the peers were being used. They're being used mostly as gophers and transportation experts, and that's not really utilizing the lived experience of mental health issues and the learned experience of recovery. So that made the non-peer staff's job a lot easier. And my role within the organization was to role model what I wanted the peer staff to do, which was be disruptive, and not just for the sake of being disruptive, but to change the system and to really fully utilize our experience to help other people, and to role model for other people who are in our program to grow, take those risks, and to move on with their lives. And I hope all my staff the best for moving on and getting into the system and maybe some less traditional peer staff roles. I've got staff that are in this position that have moved over into licensing and ACT teams and things like that. So we've really helped to into the system from a concrete level. So.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. And you also have a couple of different perspectives you could talk from. So the role of the supervisor, maybe where you were and where, and maybe contrast that. And again, are you on mute?
Also was making good points. In the peer runs, it was almost closed system because we all knew what the value of peers were. We had peer support specialists, peer GED, and peer special trainers. We had and activity specialists. So again, everybody was peers. So it was easy to kind of sit back and coast on the like as Tony was pointing out, need to be disruptive. What we were already disrupted. So it was in a way easier. But what I do now is a lot more fun because I've been with H&H since 2013, and they have been working with peers since 1999. And so a lot of time to grow and get used to having peers. And my question is very singular because, as I touched on earlier, the system is very eager to know who the peers are and what they do. We're standing up services in the medical emergency rooms now, taking us out of the CPEPs, comprehensive psychiatric emergency programs, and putting peers right in medicine where they can support individuals who never have been screened for a substance use or mental health disorder. So I'm often called upon to speak both inside and outside the corporation about the value of peer services, what peer services are. We're really at a place now where we're almost moved out of the mini clinician peer profession, but I'm still in a wonderful position here where I can say, no, I'm sorry, the peer does not do assessment assessment and screening, and nobody argues. Everybody accepts the fact that I'm a supervisor with lived experience and also a licensed social worker and certified peer specialist, and they're comfortable with that. So my position in the organization is really the house resource on everything peer, and I just think it's very generous of them, and I think it's great that they're putting themselves in a position to accept peers in supervision and in management. Like I said, I'll just close by saying, in addition to the 2 supervisory peers that report to me, we have 3 reporting at Kings County, and we have some peers actually moving out into other administrative positions, which again, from the standpoint of mentoring, it's great if people want to. I wanted to stay in the venue, but I think it's great if people want to move out. They're curious, and just bring that lived experience into even into administrative work or in management work. It's all good. So yes, my role in the organization is to the peer fires burning at a time.
Love that. Keep the peer fires burning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a question that kind of may fit here, and it's that someone made a comment earlier around being a friend to the supervisee, and the question was, how do you balance that? Because you're not really a friend, you are their supervisor.
That's Joe, and I actually think that was when Scott was speaking. So Scott, did you want to maybe address that first and then talk about your role within your organization?
So relationship between, with the team, it can be a delicate one. I foremost respect my team, and I respect who they are, and respect where they have come from, and a delicate balance from my perspective as far as communicating with them as supervisee and communicating with them as a friend. And I always make sure I go out of my way to give them the respect that they deserve, and with them like human beings. And understanding that there is a line where, I have to make sure I do not get too close to a team. And so it doesn't cloud my responsibilities as a supervisor. So, in previous experience, I have made mistakes like that. So, and a couple of those were not pretty. I will admit to that. But we have a small team and we communicate all the time, and they come to me for anything. But understand that if I have to do my job, I'm going to do it. But they also know I'm going to do it with respect, not just for them, but for the position that I'm in. So that's been cultivated over time. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes. And I think I'll just blend that in with the role within the organization. Some may know that I got to this position through very tragic circumstances. And so when that whole thing happened almost a year ago, I was asked to help in transition of keeping the Recipient Affairs Department going and helping with the peer team. And so basically, I'd only been here like 2 months. So I went from literally being a peer specialist to learn things to all of a sudden did like 100 pages of administrative responsibilities. And so that transition was not easy. But who was in maintaining my balance and my wellness, making sure my team was doing okay through this transition. And I like to think I've developed a connection, a positive connection with our executive team here, and our peers. And so if there's, need support for something, or they need administrative support for something, we can have that conversation, and it's not be awkward. And administration here knows that I go to bat for my team. They know that I will say what I need to say sometimes, and so it's a great dynamic. It's also a dynamic that you have to respect. So yeah, there is a fine line, but my peers know that they can call me anytime. Tonight, it comes up and can talk, but they also know that if I have to sit down with them and have a conversation about something, that we can do it. We will do it professionally and respectfully. And, we've had a great working relationship. So from that perspective, it's been good.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you handling both of those. And Celia, last up, maybe perspective of the different organizations that you've worked with and mentored through the years.
I have worked with non-peer supervisors and sort of mentored them in how, and this is the very beginning when peer specialists were first being hired and introduced to the mental health system, on how to treat them as a worker rather than someone who was a patient or, recipient. And those two roles, knowing that you're in recovery, you're in the system at some point, but you're also using your expertise to help the peers and help, like Tony said, change the system. It gets conflicted. And so I loved speaking to some of the supervisors about what the role of the peer is, and also saying what their role is, in a way that they can hear in a very diplomatic way. And they were asking for that because they didn't know. And so I think that was an important part to separate. I mean, if the peers are having any trouble in their recovery, it's not the role of the supervisor to help them with that. It's for them to say, hey, well, you need support. What are your supports? Is it a peer support group? Is it family? Is it going to, therapy? And having the peer define for themselves, what is it that I need for support in order for me to be effective in the job? And so I did a lot of educating supervisors about that. And I just think as when I was a peer supervisor, there was no rule book on how to do it. I just thought, how would I like to see myself in the system within working with clinicians and peers and recipients? And I took it very seriously and, carried myself in a very professional way. Over time, because the role wasn't understood at the time, and neither was the peer supervisor, but over time I was able to create a role, a definition of this is what a peer supervisor is about. And I was very supportive of the specialists that I worked with. But I've seen it from both sides, being a peer specialist myself and also being a peer supervisor. I think that we've created what we'd like to see in the role, and then it manifests within working in the mental health system.
Yeah.
You're
Great
welcome.
answer. Okay, Joe, do we have any chats before we go on to the open line?
Yes, actually, we do. We have a couple of questions. The first question is involving when you have a peer you're supervising who is struggling with knowing when, what, and how to disclose how do you encourage them around the use of their personal experience as a source of strength for someone else, particularly if they're struggling with that, determining when, what, how to disclose about their experience?
Okay, well, I'll open it to any or all of you as panelists.
This is Gita. I have a situations with that going on right now because, as I mentioned, we have a bunch of new peers, and they're very eager to share their story. So what we do is a lot of role-playing around strategic disclosure. We don't want people to feel pressured by keeping a secret. The example I'm going to use is medicated assisted treatment for someone with a substance use disorder. So the peer meets the recipient, and the recipient opens up to the peer about, say, an opioid use disorder. And of course, a brand new peer, fresh out of school, will say, "Oh, I'm on MAT, and it's great. It's helped me to no end." And what we coach the peers around is saying something more general. I've been where you are, and using their lived experience in such a way as to cast hope for the recipient, perhaps to say, people are helped by medicine-assisted treatment. In this case, we're specifically talking about methadone. This is not a psychiatric peer situation, but it's the same thing when we talk about disclosing, and we explain that we want to do it in the patient's, or a hospital, in the recipient's interest. It has to be for the recipient and not for the individual. And that's something that most peers get right away. They don't need that many reminders that we're doing this for them, not for us. So just putting it on that level seems to really help people, A, disclose strategically as to content, strategically as to volume amount, and strategically as to when to break in with that.
Yep. Does anyone else have an answer to that?
Scott, I'll jump in real quick because it's a great question. The big part is our team will actually discuss this, and in general, some people will be more comfortable talking about the situation than others, and I've learned, through experience, that there are certain times you can open up a quarter or half a page of the book, and need to open up the entire book. And I should pick out experience. I try to pick out relevant moments, he tried to say, that pertain to the conversation. And what I use is it's not just the fact that you've been through situations. What it feels like, emotions, the agony and the pain, suffering. You know what it feels like to go through those situations. And without having to read the entire book, you feel enough that individual that you're talking with know that, hey, you're not alone, because I've been through this too. And Mima and I talk about it quite often, and this conversation, is there, what much or what's not enough, and as you work as a peer specialist, as you work as an individual who's working our brothers and sisters, you develop that effort level. You develop that of what not to say. My own perspective, it doesn't happen in five minutes. It's over time. And my peer team, I think if they were here, the same thing. You just develop parameters over time as to what not to say. but it's a great experience to learn how to do that.
Before we open it up to the others, Joe, are there other questions in the chat? Because I know we're down on time.
We have one, and I'm going to open things up for everybody, but I'm going to ask Liz Haley to ask her question regarding support versus discipline. So give me just a second, folks. Everyone should be unmuted. So Liz, if you could go ahead with your question about support versus discipline.
Sure. I've been in situations before where I can see that someone is struggling, and try not to be, be respectful of that people are where at and they don't necessarily have to tell you everything. Notice someone's visibly struggling and they don't want to share or talk about it. How do you offer support when maybe it's affecting their work, it's affecting their, it's greatly even affecting their work, but it's not something that they've opened for you to really inquire about? How do you address that other than concretely to offer support?
I'll take a stab at that. This is a great question that comes up a lot, and it's an area where we have to be careful as supervisors and as people, because it's really, we're very caring people, I think, in general, because that's why we got into this field. But it is very concrete. That are working for us, at the day, we have a business to run, and they have to do the job. And if they're not doing the job, we need to address that. And however we address that, whether that's through a verbal warning or a counseling session, depending on, sort of where we're at in a progressive discipline process, then we need to stay very clear. This is what we need from you. We're paying you for your labor power. This is what we're buying, and now we're not getting what we paid for. Now, that's really cold, probably pretty harsh, but that's the bottom line that we always have to remember, that's the ultimate sort of black and white issue. But before you get to that point, I think there's a lot of things that you can do, and I think that in my position that we will probably go farther than most people would to try and offer support. So the traditional things that you would do for anybody else, like EAP, Employee Assistance Program, talking to people about their, again, focusing on the job performance. So this is what we've been noticing. You've been coming in late, or whatever's not been done, or this or that, whatever it is, and address it and say, you can't say things like, did you take your meds, or have you thought of going to more therapy, or you can't say those kinds of things. Those are illegal to do. But what you can do is you can be general and say, I'm worried about you. Are you getting enough support? It's really important to have a delineation between the job and your home life. In order to do this job, you do need to take care of yourself. So, have you thought about go to a spiritual advisor? A lot of people get help from here or there, and just offer sort of a general suggestions, but nothing specific like a medication change or something like that. But just that what you observe, speak what you're observing, and offer support in a general sense. But if the behaviors don't change, ultimately it is something that where we're going to do this one. I've also found that family medical leave to help folks if they just take a break and then get letters together, and then they come back and then everything's cool.
Rita, it's Scott. I just want to echo Tony's words. And most important things when I first took this position was to make sure that I was in constant communication with my team. If moments like this came up, be aware, and I would be able to have a conversation with the individual before hopefully anything got to that point. And so, I make it a point to reach out to my team on a regular basis and, how's it going? What's going on? How's life treating you? and make sure that they know that I'm there for them. So hopefully if they are going through something, they won't wait. You can't reach out to where they're working at because they're spread throughout our facility. They'll call me or say, look, I got to come to the office. We need to talk. And they've done that on a number of occasions. So I know from my perspective, not to them, letting them know that I'm there for them, help in any way I can, hopefully prevents, situations like that. But Tony's right. At the end of the day, we advisors, we as people in positions of leadership have responsibilities that we have to fulfill. So, while we're doing that, and while we're, showing the respect and the care, we need to make sure that they are fulfilling the responsibilities of their position. So it is a fine line to walk. I know me personally, I tried to be proactive from day one, out to them and say, hey, I'm here. You have anything? Come talk to me. And thankfully, they've had enough trust in me where we've had those conversations and we've been able to avert potential situations.
Okay, Joe, I know we're running down on time. Is there anything else before, any questions that we want to ask really quickly, or should we bring it to a close?
We could see if there's anybody else that hasn't had a chance to ask. Crickets.
What I need to mention is that you're always welcome to send questions through the virtual community. We're developing a network of supervisors that will be able to start an Ask the Supervisor line so that we have both these live dialogues, but also opportunities if questions come up for a whole community to explore them. So that's sort of where we're going with this community for supervisors. And I really wanted to, again, thank you, Joe, thank you, Tony, thank you, Scott, thank you, Celia, and thank you, Gita, for being a part of today's session, and for everybody who came. We really appreciate it. And we have a recording, is that right?
We have a recording this time.
Yay! Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank
you.
Rita.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.